iHeart, get ready. Fantasy football is here. Welcome to the Scout Fantasy Show. ScoutFantasy.com is home to the Fantasy Football World Championships and the best players in the world. Real money winners giving their secrets to help you win. Now exclusively on iHeart. This is the Scout Fantasy Show with your host, the one, the only, Dr. Roto.
Dr. Roto from Scout Fantasy Sports. So get out the insurance cards, get out the copay. The office is open, my friends. All right, so let's get to today's podcast. We'll do some news and notes, and then we'll go through the NFC as I promised. Remember, I told you that yesterday we went through the AFC. Today we'll go through the NFC. We'll look at some guys who I don't think will be playing, or I think will be playing more to help you in Week 17. But right now, in some news and notes, first of all, Tyler Eifert had back surgery. I like Tyler Eifert. He's one of my favorite players. I love his size. I love his speed. I love his strength. I love his ability to catch the football. But I don't love his ability to stay on the field. That's a problem. If you can't stay on the field, I can't play you. And this year in fantasy, he was out way more than I thought he was going to be. I thought he was going to be back in week like 3 or 4, and it was a lot later than that, and it hurt me. And then I just never got the year I expected out of him. I had a few good games from Tyler Eifert, but I need more, and I'm very concerned. He's got a big red flag next to his name. He and Jordan Reed have the big red flags next to their name. So when I'm drafting, I'm saying to myself, I'm not so sure I want these guys. I like them, but I'm not so sure I want them. Okay? RG3 expected cleared concussion protocol. I hope he doesn't play this week. I hope we've seen the last of him. I really do. But who knows with Hugh Jackson, and who knows whether he wants to even risk Cody Kessler. I'm not so sure about that. All right, so here's a big piece of news for the Jets. First of all, Ryan Fitzpatrick basically says, he knows he's not coming back next year. Secondly, Brandon Marshall went crazy. Went crazy last week during halftime against the Patriots. And he was going nuts. Okay? So we know this is Brandon Marshall's MO. Brandon Marshall is a guy I try never to draft. However, I might draft Brandon Marshall next year with one caveat. So long as he's not on the Jets. If he's on the Jets, I will have no part of him. Because this guy is already turning into the locker room cancer that we know he is. We know he is that. So I don't want any part of this guy if he's a New York Jet. If he goes anywhere else, I want him. Because here's Brandon Marshall's MO. He gets somewhere and he makes a good impression. He's excited to play there. Life is good. The coach promises him 1 million catches. And then by year 2, he wears out his welcome. So he's like the guy that, the minute he's onto a new team, I'm interested. If he's on the same team, I'm not. Not. So there you have it. I know that's a surprise to many of you. But this week, I want no part of Brandon Marshall. Really? Do you really think that Fitzpatrick is going to try to find Brandon Marshall just to shut him up? I don't know about that. Maybe. Maybe they're friends. You know what? I stand corrected. Maybe because they're friends and Ryan Fitzpatrick knows that he's done. Maybe he goes to Marshall and he goes, we're both out of here, guy. Let's screw these guys. Every time I drop back to pass, I'm throwing at you. So you know what? I might have one team with Brandon Marshall on it. Just one. And then if that happens, Todd Bowles gets fired. Because then he can't control the people. Can't control the team. All right, Randall Cobb still not practicing. He's been dealing with ankle issues. I don't know whether he plays this week. In fact, I think he doesn't. I think this Geronimo Allison has turned out to be a pretty good player. So if he sits, I expect him back in the playoffs, and I think that's what the Packers want. They want to see him in the playoffs. They don't need to see him right now. All right, so Doug Martin, we've been talking about this. Why wasn't he playing? And I thought it was just because Dirk Cutter hates him. It looks like he failed a drug test because he tested positive for Adderall, and he got a 4-game suspension. So there's what it is. So, season's done. Jaquiz Rogers is going to be in there. I would get him into my DFS lineups as quickly as possible. And Doug Martin is done dealing with Adderall issues, and he's going to go seek treatment. So I don't know whether Adderall makes you a better football player or not. I know it's a banned substance by the NFL. I know it helps you do better on an SAT. Hopes it makes you concentrate better, but we'll have to see. All right, so here's a play that I think is a must play. Mark Ingram. He needs about 60 yards from 1,000. Now, let's be quite honest here. He should have already had his 1,000 yards. It's that Sean Payton was putting in way too much Tim Hightower and not enough Mark Ingram. So I believe that he will get the 60 yards against Atlanta. Absolutely a great play. The team knows it. He knows it. Drew Brees knows it. And even if Sean Payton calls a different play, Drew Brees will get in the huddle and change the play and give it to Mark Ingram. So I have no doubt that he gets it in the first. He might even get it in the first quarter. He might get it in the first quarter. I'll say the first half, but if it was the first quarter, I wouldn't be shocked at all. Okay? Jeremy Hill looks like he's still not practicing. AJ Green, is not playing. Tyler Eifert, as I told you earlier in this podcast, had surgery. Does it make sense to play Jeremy Hill? I don't think so. You're going to lose anyway. You're playing Baltimore, so it wouldn't surprise me if Rex Burkhead was the main guy. And if Rex Burkhead's the main guy, I think he can get you a lot of PPR receptions, a lot of PPR points. I think he can get 6 or 7 receptions. Maybe he can get 30, 40 yards rushing. Maybe he can get 40, 50 yards receiving. And maybe he gets 6 receptions. So what? That's about 16 points from Rex Burkhead? I think I'll take it. I think I'll take those 16 points. I mean, this is a nightmare week as it stands. But if I could get that from Rex Burkhead, I will absolutely take that. So let's see. Any other news? The Jaguars interviewing Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin's 70. And I don't know. It's not that 70 is old, because it's not. But Tom Coughlin, man, that's a tough love coach. He's the guy, when he calls the 1 o'clock meeting, that he's fining you at 12:55. Is that what the Jaguars need? I don't know. I think they need a quarterback. In fact, I know they need a quarterback. I think they need a better running back because the law firm of Ivory, Yeldon, and Robinson stinks. I think they shouldn't have paid that much money to Julius Thomas, who's not very good and who only played for the contract. So is Tom Coughlin the answer? I don't think he is. I think there are more innovative minds. I think Tom Coughlin is the type of guy who could be a consultant for a team. I hire him as my guy to help my young coach, but I don't think I want him being my head coach. I'm not saying the game has passed him by. But if Tom Coughlin was still really good, you know where he'd be coaching right now? The New York Giants. But people wanted him out in New York too. They were done with Tom Coughlin's act. And I'm right. And any Giant fan will tell you that. Any Giant fan will tell you that, you know what? We were kind of done with Tom Coughlin. I'm just throwing it out there. All right. The New York Daily News is saying that Todd Bowles will be back next year. I said that. I wrote that in an article on Scout. This is not his idea, his fault at all. We saw what he could do last year. So Bowles gets at least another year to show what he can do. First of all, he had a crappy quarterback. Secondly, Darrelle Revis stunk, right? And third, Wilkerson wasn't really healthy. And Decker was out. How is any of that Todd Bowles' fault? So the question you have to ask yourself, when a coach has a bad season like this, did the players quit on him? If the players have quit on him, then you got to fire him, 100%. But if the players are still playing hard, then it tells me that the players respect him. Now, I don't think the Jets have quit on him. I think the Jets just stink. There's a difference. Stinking and quitting, two different things. So I don't think they quit on him. I think they just suck. So I think Todd Bowles will be back. And you know what? If he's not, I'd hire him somewhere else. That's a guy I have no problem hiring as a head coach. I don't think he's the reason the Jets are losing. Jets are losing because they stink. All right, last piece of news here. Antonio Gates says he plans to play in 2017. And I think he's saying that for this reason. He wants the record. He's 2 touchdowns shy of the tight end record. And I think everybody knows he's not going to get it this year. Not going to get it this year. I mean, I think they'll try to get it for him, but against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, I don't think it's going to happen. So here's what Gates does. He comes back for one more season. He says to everybody on the team, hey, look, I'm done. This is my last year. You know what? Hunter Henry's the guy. I'm just the backup tight end. Bring me in 2 tight end sets. Get me a couple of touchdowns. I'll be a nice guy in the locker room. Do I keep Gates on my team? Probably do. I probably do. I start Hunter Henry. I put Gates as my number 2 tight end. I bring him in red zone situations. I get him with 2 touchdowns. At the end of 2 touchdowns, I bring him aside and say, I think I'm going to cut you. Bye-bye. But I may hold you for the rest of the year. I'm not sure how I feel. Okay? So there you have it. When you see Antonio Gates, but it shouldn't affect you drafting Hunter Henry next year. Because you know what you should be doing? Drafting Hunter Henry next year. That guy's got a top 5 tight end ceiling. Top 5 tight end ceiling for sure. Okay, so let's look at the NFC guys that we can play this week. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. I don't really know how I feel about this. I guess I'm going to start David Johnson, but I've had the same worries about him the last couple of weeks in terms of, do they need to get him the football that much, right? Is there incentive? He's got 841 yards receiving. He wants to get to 1,000. I know that's a goal of his. Yeah, I guess I'll play him. I don't feel great about it. It is LA. LA stinks. So, I mean, I guess he'll play, but I'm not loving that play. But I'll play him. I don't want any part of Larry Fitzgerald. I think I like more of J.J. Nelson this week. I do. All right, for Atlanta, this is a team that's going for it. I think you're going to see a heavy dose of Freeman and Coleman. As you know, I want to make sure that Julio Jones is healthy. I don't think I'm going to play him. I think he really could use that week of rest. They need this bye week, Atlanta. Atlanta needs this bye week, so it's crucial for them to give Julio Jones more time to rest. Now, I think Atlanta is a big candidate for one and done. I do, a big candidate for one and done. But if they have any chance to go deep in the playoffs, they need to have that week. All right, so Carolina Panthers, man, I don't know if I want any of these guys. I think, a lot of these guys have not been playing already. They've not been practicing. So I want to watch that one very closely, okay? Olsen, Stewart, Funchess, all didn't practice this week. Olsen's not at 100%. I don't know. Maybe this is a Ted Ginn, Kelvin Benjamin week. Maybe this is a Philly Brown week. I think this is an Ed Dixon week and not a Greg Olsen. I know Greg Olsen wants to play, but why? I mean, he's got his 1,000 yards receiving. Why does he want to be out there? I don't know. I don't see how this helps. For the Chicago Bears, Matt Barkley, I'm loving him. I like Alshon Jeffrey, who's playing for a paycheck. Cameron Meredith, Deontay Thompson, Jordan Howard. This is a team that I'm going to rally around in DFS for sure. I'm very intrigued about what the Bears can do. What they can do this week. Do I love their matchup at Minnesota? No, but I think Minnesota's quit. I mean, they quit on Mike Zimmer. They're not listening to him. They're not in the playoffs. So I have no problem with little Jordan Howard and Alshon Jeffrey. I don't at all. All right, for Dallas, this team has clinched everything. So I wouldn't touch anybody in Dallas at all. Maybe Terrence Williams, maybe Alf Morris, but I'm not playing anybody. If you have Ezekiel Elliott, and you're in your week 17, they said, hey, he may play. I don't know. What does he get, 10 carries? I know that Jerry Jones was burned, right? He was burned a few years ago when he benched his guys in week 17, and then they came back in the playoffs and they were tight, and they just looked like they weren't ready, right? They had lost their mojo. So I think Elliott plays, but God forbid this guy gets injured in week 17, a meaningless game when you're making a Super Bowl run. This guy's playing a quarter. Seriously, this guy's playing a quarter. I want no part of it. The Detroit Lions, we got to be all in on the Lions, right? Matthew Stafford, Golden Tate, Anquan Bolden, Zach Zenner. Does Theo Riddick play? I don't know. I mean, I'm waiting for Theo Riddick to play, but his wrist has been bad. I don't know why they just haven't put him on IR. Seriously. But Zenner looked very good against the Cowboys, so I think he's interesting. But the Lions want to get in the playoffs. They got to win this week. It's as simple as that. So, but I'm more in on Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers, Ty Montgomery, Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, Geronimo Allison, Jared Cook. I think Jared Cook is a really good play this week. really good. You know how bad Detroit is against the tight end. I think Jared Cook is a smart play, especially if Randall Cobb is out. I think Jared Cook becomes the de facto number 3 receiver there behind Nelson and Adams. So, I'm loading up on Aaron Rodgers. If this is not a game that he can win, then I'm going to be shocked at that. I mean, they're playing in a dome. Aaron Rodgers in a dome? It doesn't get better than that. So I'm all in. Okay, you could have Darius Slay there. You can have whatever you want. You could have one-horse open sleigh for all I care. I'm playing Jordy. I'm playing Cook. And I'm playing Aaron Rodgers this week. Let's see. For the Los Angeles Rams, oh, man, what a mess. Who knows? Kenny Britt is very questionable now. He's not at 100%. I don't think that he plays. I think this is a game where you can see like Brian Quick and Pharaoh Cooper. Right? This is a game where I want to see those guys in the second half. And Tyler Higbee and Malcolm Brown. And I just want to, if I'm the Rams, I want to see my depth. I want to see what I have here. So I wouldn't touch this team. I wouldn't play anybody on this team. But I'm just giving you names. Higbee, who caught a touchdown last week. Pharaoh Cooper. You know, what can Pharaoh Cooper do? He's a very good player. And people liked him coming into the draft this year. I think he's certainly a guy on my radar. For the Vikings, I guess Adam Thielen. I want to see Adam Thielen. I know I'm not seeing AP. You know, I know they don't want to get Sam Bradford hurt in this last game. So Cordero Patterson, Thielen. I'm going to play Thielen for sure. I don't know if Stephon Diggs is going to play. I mean, it's early. Didn't participate in practice, and they have nothing to play for. So I'm all in on Thielen. I don't know if he gets 200 yards next week, but, you know, against Chicago, I got some love for him there. The New Orleans Saints, we've already talked about this. Mark Ingram. And if you're worried about it, let's play Mark Ingram some more. I think that this is a big week for him against Atlanta. So, you know, as I like Willie Snead too. I always like Willie Snead on the road. I like Cooks at home, Snead on the road, Thomas both places. That's how good he is. All right, the New York Giants. I really like Paul Perkins this week. I think the Giants have to keep Rashad Jennings healthy, first of all, because they can't risk him in the playoffs. Because you need him pass protecting and you need him holding the football in the fourth quarter and running it if you're winning. So I think this is a week that we get to see what Paul Perkins can do. I think he's number 1 on the Giants' depth chart this week. I do. I think he's an interesting play at Washington. I don't know if I'll have any shares of him in daily, but I might in seasonal. I wouldn't be afraid to use him. I think this is, you're going to see Beckham for a quarter. And then I don't even know if you see Shepard. You might see a lot of Dwayne Harris and Roger Lewis. This has all the makings of an ugly game where, you know, Washington probably wins, but Washington needs help to make the playoffs. The Philadelphia Eagles, Carson Wentz has had a big year. Sproles and Byron Marshall. So you have no Matthews, no Smallwood, no Barner because they're all in the IR. Will Sproles play this week? Yeah, I mean, he's 33 years old. He's going to play. I mean, that's what he does against Dallas, and Dallas may not be going for 100%, so I think he has a week. And this kid, Byron Marshall, might as well see what he could do. I think at the receivers, I'd be looking very closely at Trey Burton, at Zach Ertz, and of course Aguilar and Beckham, because they really need to see which one of these guys can emerge for next year, if either, because otherwise they got to get a receiver in the draft, right? You got to get rid of both these bums and get a receiver in the draft. For Seattle, Thomas Rawls is back at practice, so that's a good sign. Okay, you know, the shoulder concern is slight, and obviously they're playing the 49ers, who can't stop anybody. I would have to think this is a good week for Thomas Rawls. I'd have to think this is a good week for the entire Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson, Baldwin. Keep your eyes on Paul Richardson. Paul Richardson is a very good young player who had a severe injury, right? He had a severe injury in 2015. But he's back in 2016, and he's getting better. But this was a guy, if I believe he was a second or third round pick in the past. This is not a guy who's not good. This is a guy who's a pretty good player at one point. So, I mean, he tore an ACL in the playoffs, but that's why he had the injury. But I think Paul Richardson's a guy to watch. Now, he's not Tyler Lockett, but I'm just saying, if you're moving in the playoffs, Seattle's going to need him to do well. For San Francisco, you know Carlos Hyde is out. I think Sean Drone is a good play. DeJuan Harris is a good play. But I don't trust Chip Kelly as far as I can throw him. I mean, Curly, Streeter, Burbridge, Selleck, I don't like any of them, really. I'm not starting any of these guys at all. For Tampa Bay, I'm starting Jaquiz Rodgers 100%. 100% on the quiz, right? And then obviously Mike Evans. And then, so who are they playing this week? They're playing Carolina, who you know has given up, and they're playing them at home. Brandon Myers might be an interesting play because Cameron Braid is in the IR. But I like Mike Evans. I like Adam Humphries. I like Jaquiz Rodgers. I'm all in on Jaquiz Rodgers this week. I can't imagine that he wouldn't be in most all of my lineups. And finally, the Washington Redskins, who need this game badly. Kirk Cousins, great start this week. Deshaun Jackson is playing for a paycheck. He's a paycheck kind of guy. Pierre Garçon, Crowder. The Giants don't need the game. I'm not going to say the Giants are going to give up, but I don't know how hard the Giants are going to play. I think the Redskins win this game. I do. I think the Redskins win this game. So we'll have to see what happens there with that. But I'm worried about R. Kelly. Not exactly 100%, dealing with a knee issue. So maybe Chris Thompson. If Chris Thompson starts, I like him. I know Mac Brown did well last week, but I love Chris Thompson's ability to catch the football out of the backfield. And that's something that I really like. All right. So right now it's time to put away the insurance cards, put away the copay. The office is closed, my friends. We will be back next week. I want to wish you guys a happy and healthy new year. A great 2017 for you. I hope it's a wonderful one for you and yours in life and in fantasy. All right, guys, have a great day. Be well and take care.
Thanks for listening to the Scout Fantasy Show. There's never been a better time to join the Scout Army. Visit scoutfantasy.com. Use the promo ROTO for 2 months free. And don't forget, fantasy players, please thumbs up the podcast on the iHeart app. See you next time. Go Scouts!